Are there any other major issues you see going into Congress that you would like to?
Well, the trafficking. The trafficking of children is huge. So the foster care system is the largest supplier of children for the child sex trafficking industry.
Wow.
Yeah. We've got to do a better job of vetting who comes. There's some specific legislation I'm looking at, and
okay.
So.
Well, good. And how do they contact you?
They contact me by on my website is terrylapointe4congress.com.
And Chris took him in under his wing to kind of be dad to him. Chris is not a pedophile. He's on a registry, but he shouldn't be, okay? But he's not a pedophile. There's nothing dangerous about Chris Jones, okay?
What the heck are you in bed with a kid for?
Just wrestling.
You couldn't convince me then that you should have done that.
And see, the way people say things, he was in bed with a child.
Yeah.
There's a way to make it sound worse than it is, you know?
I know, but
there's also a point.
But Chris has to remember.
Line of demarcation.
You don't get close to that fire.
But wait a minute, now there's two things to consider here. That's Chris's decision and the kid's decision. How people here react to that is their decision. Okay, he's got a right to wrestle with the kid if he wants, and you got a right to say, I'm not getting around Chris. Okay, he's got a right to wrestle with the kid if he wants.
The fact that Kent Hovind insisted that Chris come to DAL, and he's come to DAL multiple times, well, that kind of shows you that Kent Hovind really isn't a very good friend to Chris Jones, much less a good man. So at this point, we know that Kent Hovind knew that Chris Jones was a convicted pedo. We know that Kent Hovind knows that Chris Jones is a registered sex offender. Kent Hovind knows that Chris coming to DAL could lead to some serious legal issues for himself and for Chris Jones. And yet he insisted on Chris Jones coming to DAL. We know that this happened for sure because when you go to YouTube, you find this video on Mark Stoney's YouTube channel titled Kent Hovind and the Dinosaur Adventureland crew meet with Chris Jones, January 13th, 2021. And basically what this 2-hour video is Kent Hovind and Chris Jones in DAL together, sitting down with DAL staff and ministry staff and addressing the concerns of having Chris Jones there on the campus. So we know for a fact that Chris Jones was brought to DAL after Kent was warned that this could result in the arrest of Chris Jones and legal issues for his ministry by Ernie Land. Kent went against this advice and decided Chris Jones is going to come there because I say so. But there's more than just the fact that Chris Jones was brought to DAL. The fact that Chris Jones was at DAL where children were isn't the sole reason why Kent Hovind is trying to cover up the whole Chris Jones situation. It's the fact that Chris Jones was actually busted sleeping with a 13-year-old in a bed. And in case you don't believe me, I got the evidence in the form of an audio recording. Now, in this particular audio recording, we are going to see Paul Hansen tell Kent Hovind that Chris Jones was caught in bed with a 13-year-old boy. And with that being said, let's go ahead.
Is Chris gone? Well, yeah, I disagree with Chris theologically on several things, and but that doesn't. He's allowed to go where he wants.
You know, Chris was sleeping in a bed with a boy. You know, when he was down here last time, and I text him back.
Well, Chris called the mother, and he'd known the family for a long time, and the boy was kind of. Well, still, it's not our decision to make. That's not our. I would probably do the same, and you would probably do the same if a 13-year-old kid is scared. But anyway.
So, as you heard in that particular audio clip, after being told by the DAL staff, Paul Hansen, that Chris Jones was caught in bed with a 13-year-old boy, Kent Hovind made excuses for and tried to justify Chris Jones's behavior, which contradicts the claim that Kent Hovind made on Brett's channel not too long ago when he claimed that anyone who was caught doing stuff like that would be immediately cast out of the ministry. So Chris Jones literally is caught in bed with a 13-year-old boy as a registered sex offender and a convicted pedo, and instead of casting Chris Jones off of campus like Kent says that he would, instead Kent Hovind attempts to justify Chris Jones's behavior And not only does he not kick Chris Jones off of campus immediately, to this day, he says that Chris Jones is welcome on the DAL campus whenever he wants to come, even though he was busted sleeping in a bed with a 13-year-old. Holy smokes. If this doesn't prove that Kent Hovind is a massive hypocrite and a gigantic liar, I don't know what does. Because Kent Hovind claims that if someone were caught sleeping in bed with a minor as an adult, that they would immediately be thrown off of the DAL campus. And yet when Chris Jones does it, Kent Hovind makes excuses for him. He covers for him. He invites him back to campus. Sure, bud, just come whenever you want. You're not guilty of anything.
I'm a sex offender. That's so. I mean, what's DAL's thing? Is it going to be an ask, don't tell policy?
You're welcome here anytime, brother.
I'm a sex offender. That's so. I mean, what's DAL's thing? Is it going to be an ask, don't tell policy?
You're welcome here anytime, brother. Are there any other major issues you see going into Congress that you would like to?
Well, the trafficking of children.